It was October 31st, and the autumn air was crisp in the quiet suburb of Maple Hollow. Emily Carter stood on her front porch, sipping a lukewarm cup of tea while the wind carried faint laughter and the crunch of fallen leaves down the street. Orange and purple lights twinkled on the houses. Kids in skeleton suits and princess dresses darted from door to door, clutching plastic pumpkins. It was Halloween, a night she used to love. But tonight felt different. She had just moved into this neighborhood 2 weeks ago. The boxes in her living room were still unopened. It was supposed to be a fresh start. A simple, quiet life away from the city noise and the tension of her last job. Just her and her freelance projects. And tonight her 6-year-old niece, Lena, who was staying over for a night of trick-or-treating while her sister worked a double shift at the hospital. Lena, dressed as a sparkly unicorn, ran circles around the yard, chasing falling leaves. Emily smiled, waving to a neighbor across the street, who was dressed as Dracula and handing out candy from his porch. Everything looked normal. Festive. That's when she saw him. Across the street, at the edge of the Johnsons' driveway, a man stood completely still. He wore a clown costume, but not the colorful, goofy kind. It was vintage, worn-looking. The colors had faded into muted reds and pale yellows, the fabric wrinkled and too tight across his chest. His face was hidden behind a cracked porcelain mask, painted with an eerie half-smile. He wasn't moving. He wasn't talking to anyone. He was just standing there, watching. Emily squinted, thinking maybe it was someone's elaborate costume. Maybe a teenager trying to be creepy. But something about the way he stood sent a chill down her spine. He didn't hold a candy bag. He didn't carry a phone. He didn't even flinch when a kid bumped into him while running past. Nothing. "Emmy, who's that?" Lena asked, pulling on her sleeve. Emily didn't know what to say. "Just someone in costume," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. Lena stared at him. "He's not blinking." Emily guided her niece back inside. She locked the door behind her without thinking. When she looked out the window again, the clown was gone. Just like that. No sound. No footsteps. Nothing. It was probably a neighbor. A Halloween prank. Nothing more. But even as she helped Lena sort through her candy and put on a movie, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the clown had been looking directly at her. Not the house. Not the street. Just her. And as the night grew darker, she would realize that feeling wasn't just in her head. Emily tried to move past the strange encounter. Maybe the man in the clown costume was part of a neighborhood act, or someone playing the role of Halloween creeper for fun. It was, after all, the one night of the year people could get away with being a little weird. By 7:30, she had Lena bundled in a blanket on the couch watching old cartoons, a half-eaten chocolate bar melting in her hand. Emily, feeling a little better, decided to take Jake up on his earlier invite. He was her next-door neighbor, mid-30s, laid back and charming in a small-town kind of way. He was hosting a little get-together, nothing wild, just drinks, music, and a chance to meet some locals. "You'll be fine for a bit?" she asked Lena, who nodded sleepily, eyes fixed on the screen. Emily stepped next door with a bowl of leftover candy for the porch, just in case. Jake's house was buzzing with quiet chatter, lit with orange bulbs and plastic spiders. A fog machine hissed near the hallway, and someone had dressed their dog as a pirate. It was exactly what she needed. Normal. Harmless. She grabbed a drink from the kitchen and joined Jake on the back deck. "Glad you came," he said, handing her a light jacket. "You settling in okay?" "Yeah. Mostly," she said. Then, after a moment of hesitation, she added, "Hey, was there someone dressed like a clown earlier? Kinda old-fashioned costume? I saw him just standing outside." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Clown? No, I don't think so. Nobody like that at the party." Emily tried to laugh it off. It was probably a teenager pulling some kind of scare stunt. But something flickered behind Jake's eyes. A brief pause. He looked back toward the street. "Honestly, I hate those old clown masks. They always feel tough." "You sure it wasn't someone you know?" Emily shook her head. "Never seen him before. He was just standing there. Didn't move." Jake was about to say something else when someone called for him inside. He gave her a nod and went back in, leaving Emily alone on the deck. She looked across the yard toward her house, dimly lit now. A shadow shifted behind the curtains of her upstairs window. She blinked. No one should be up there. She texted Lena. No reply. That wasn't unusual. Her niece was 6 and probably asleep. Still, Emily's stomach tightened. She excused herself from the party and walked quickly back home, the air suddenly colder than before. Inside, everything was quiet. Lena was asleep on the couch, a cartoon menu looping on the TV. The blanket had slipped off her shoulders. Emily gently tucked her in and glanced toward the stairs. Just to be sure. She crept up slowly, one step at a time, her hand trailing along the banister. The hallway was still, lit by the soft glow of a nightlight she'd plugged in earlier. The bedroom door was open. She stepped inside. Nothing. Just boxes, her half-assembled desk, and shadows cast by the moonlight. She turned to leave, but something caught her eye. The window. It was unlocked. She always kept it locked. Emily reached forward and slid it shut, clicking the latch into place. As she turned to leave the room, she paused. Outside, across the street, at the exact spot where he had been before, the clown was back. Standing. Still. Facing her house. Only this time, his head tilted slowly to one side. Like he knew she was watching. Emily closed the curtains slowly, careful not to make a sound. Her heart thumped in her chest, sharp and irregular. The clown was back, in the same spot across the street, like he'd never left. Still. Unmoving. Watching. She stepped back from the window and stood in the middle of her dim bedroom, not knowing what to do. Call someone? But who? The police? What would she even say? That a man in a costume was standing across the road on Halloween night? It would sound like nothing. Like a joke. Back downstairs, the house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional rustle of the trees outside. Lena was still asleep on the couch, breathing soft and steady. Emily sat in the armchair, one eye on the window, the other on the clock. 10:04 p.m. She turned off the porch light and drew the curtains. But even then, she could still feel him out there. That low-grade unease followed her into the kitchen. She poured a glass of water and tried not to glance at the back door. It was locked. She checked it again anyway. She ended up pacing the hallway for nearly 10 minutes, checking each window one by one. Then she went back to the living room and stopped cold. Lena was sitting upright now, blinking groggily at the dark TV screen. Lena? You okay? The girl rubbed her eyes. I saw him again. Emily's mouth went dry. What do you mean? Lena pointed toward the stairs. He was waving at me. From the window up there. Emily's skin turned ice cold. Which window? Lena hesitated. Your bedroom. The tall one. Emily didn't respond. She just stood there, staring at the staircase. She had just been up there. The window had been open, but she locked it. She was sure of it. But what if she was wrong? She walked to the stairs, slower this time. Each step creaked under her weight. When she reached the top, she hesitated again. The bedroom door was cracked open, just slightly. That's not how she left it. She pushed it gently. Nothing. No one. The room was empty. She moved to the window, careful not to look outside. Her fingers found the latch, still locked. She exhaled in relief. Maybe Lena had a bad dream. Maybe her own nerves were making her see things that weren't there. But as she turned to leave the room, she saw it. On her desk, propped up against the edge of an unopened moving box, was a single piece of candy. Wrapped in orange foil. Not hers. Not Lena's. Just one. And underneath it, scrawled messily on the cardboard in what looked like a finger. Happy Halloween, Emily. Emily didn't scream. She didn't move. She just stood there, staring at the candy and the smeared writing below it. Her breath caught in her throat as her mind tried to make sense of it. She hadn't unpacked that box yet. No one could have gotten in. The doors were locked. The windows. She checked them herself. Her fingers trembled as she pulled out her phone and opened the doorbell camera app. The live feed showed the porch empty. But she rewound the footage to earlier that evening, just after she had gone to Jake's party. There he was. At 8:42 p.m., the camera showed the clown slowly walking up the driveway. Not running. Not creeping. Just strolling like he belonged there. He stepped onto the porch and stopped directly in front of the camera, head tilted. For a full minute, he didn't move. No knock. No bell. Just silence. Then, without warning, he leaned in close. The screen filled with the cracked porcelain smile of the mask. Inches from the lens. And then he waved. Emily's hand went cold around the phone. She fast-forwarded. He stayed there, still and silent, for nearly 20 minutes. Then he turned and walked out of frame. She backed out of the app and immediately sent the clip to Jake. She typed only 2 words. "Did you see?" A few seconds later, her phone buzzed. "Jake, what the hell? I'm calling the cops." Emily locked every door in the house again and checked each window a 3rd time. She turned every light on, grabbed a kitchen knife, and sat on the floor near the couch where Lena still slept. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Jake messaged again. "Jake, they're on the way. Stay inside." Emily didn't reply. She was watching the front door now, her ears tuned to every creak and groan the old house made. The occasional sound of kids yelling outside was thinning. Halloween was winding down. But the tension inside her chest wasn't. Another alert came from the doorbell app. Motion detected, front porch. 11:26 p.m. She opened the live feed. Nothing. Just the porch, the street lamp flickering in the background. She stared harder. Then, in the very bottom corner of the screen, she saw it. A shadow. Moving just barely out of frame. She froze. He was close. Too close. The camera didn't catch the whole yard, just the steps and a sliver of the front walk. Whoever, or whatever, was out there knew that. Was avoiding it. A knock rang out. Not at the front door. From the back. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Emily jumped to her feet, heart in her throat. She grabbed Lena, still groggy, and pulled her toward the hallway bathroom, the only room without windows. She locked them both inside. The house was quiet again, except for the sound of her own breathing, and the single notification on her phone. New footage saved, backdoor camera. 11:27 p.m. She didn't open it. Not yet. Emily sat on the cold tile floor of the bathroom, clutching Lena against her chest. The girl had fallen back asleep, unaware of the growing dread just beyond the door. Emily's phone sat in her hand, screen glowing, waiting. New footage saved, backdoor camera. She tapped it. The video loaded slowly, as if the signal itself hesitated. It started with silence. The grainy image of the small back porch lit by a single bulb. Nothing moved. Then a shadow passed over the camera. The clown stepped into view, emerging from the left like he'd been standing there all along. The same vintage costume. The cracked mask. But this time, he held something in his hand. Emily's breath hitched. It was a small bag, but with a jack-o'-lantern printed on the side. He raised his hand slowly and knocked 3 times on the glass. The sound was soft, almost polite. Then he knelt and placed the bag gently on the welcome mat. He turned and stared directly at the camera. He stayed there, still watching. The video kept recording. For over 2 minutes, he didn't move. Just stared. Then, without warning, the footage cut out. Emily's screen went black. She stared at her reflection in the screen, pale and shaken. Her fingers trembled as she checked the live feed again. Nothing on the back porch now. Just that damned bag sitting there. Waiting. A knock sounded at the front door. This one louder. From not the clown. A voice followed, muffled through the walls. "Ma'am? Police." Emily opened the bathroom door just a crack, listened. Another knock. "Ma'am, it's Officer Keene. You called about a suspicious person?" She grabbed Lena, still half asleep, and crept to the front door, knife still in her hand. She peered through the peephole. A uniformed officer stood on the porch. Broad-shouldered. Cruiser lights flashed faintly from the street behind him. She exhaled with shaky relief and opened the door. "Thank God," she whispered. The officer looked concerned. "You're safe now. Can we come in and take a look?" "We?" Emily asked. The officer glanced back toward the sidewalk and waved. Another figure approached. His partner, stepping into the glow of the porch light. Emily felt her legs weaken. He was wearing a clown costume. Not the same one. Newer. Plastic smile. But still, a clown. She froze. The first officer noticed. He's just in costume for the night. We were at a school event before this. He's good. Emily tried to relax her shoulders, but her eyes never left the partner. He gave a short nod, face neutral. We checked the area. Didn't find anyone, the officer continued. You're sure about what you saw? Emily led them inside, cautious, still shaken. She showed the footage. The clown on the porch. The knock. The candy. Both officers watched in silence. Then Officer Keene asked, Is there anyone who would want to scare you? Someone from your past? Emily shook her head. No enemies. No stalkers. Nothing. Keene scratched the back of his neck. We'll patrol the area a little longer. Just in case. Before they left, the partner, the one in the clown outfit, turned to Emily. Don't open that bag, he said softly. Then they were gone. Emily locked the door behind them and stared at the small black bag still sitting on the back porch. Emily didn't sleep. Not even a minute. She sat in the living room with the lights on, knife in hand, while Lena slept curled on the couch. Outside, the Halloween night had finally gone still. No more trick-or-treaters. No more laughter. Just wind brushing dry leaves across the sidewalk. The black bag on the back porch remained untouched. She kept glancing at it through the window, the way one might check on a wild animal lurking just outside the glass. It hadn't moved. But it was there. Heavy with something. By 1:30 a.m., the silence became unbearable. Emily couldn't take it anymore. She needed to know. She grabbed a pair of kitchen tongs and a flashlight, slid on her coat, and cracked the back door just enough to reach through. The bag was light. Too light. She carried it back inside, setting it on the kitchen counter under the harsh overhead light. With her heart pounding, she peeled it open with the tongs. Inside was a small bundle wrapped in tissue paper. And a note. She unfolded it, her eyes scanning the shaky, childlike handwriting. Trick or treat. You forgot to answer the door. Emily's stomach dropped. Her hand tightened on the counter. She unwrapped the tissue, bracing herself. It wasn't candy. It was a photo. A printed photo of her and Lena sitting in the living room earlier that night. Emily on her phone. Lena asleep beside her. Taken through the window. Taken from outside. Emily stumbled back, knocking over a chair. Her mind raced. How long had he been watching? She raced to the curtains, slammed them shut. Every window. Every blind. Then checked Lena, still asleep, still safe. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, asterisk did you get my gift? Smiley face asterisk. Emily's hands shook. She didn't reply. She went to the security system keypad by the door. Disarmed. Her heart stopped. She had armed it hours ago. She was sure. She slammed her finger against the buttons, resetting it. The countdown beep echoed through the silent house. She tried calling Jake. No answer. She called the police. They told her they would send someone again, but their tone had shifted. Less urgent. More skeptical. She sat down in the hallway, clutching the knife again. Waiting. Time passed. Then, sometime around 2:15 a.m., she heard it. The front doorknob. Turning. Not rattling. Turning. Like someone already had a key. Emily rushed to the door, heart hammering so loud it drowned everything else out. She pressed her ear to the wood. Silence. Then a soft click. The deadbolt. She stumbled back, eyes locked on the handle. It turned halfway, then stopped. She lunged forward and threw the chain lock across just in time. Seconds later, the door creaked open against the chain, revealing a sliver of darkness between frame and jamb. No face. Just air. Then something slid through the gap. A single candy bar. Orange wrapper. Same kind as the one she found on her desk. She slammed the door shut, threw every lock into place, and backed away, nearly tripping over Lena's backpack. Her mind reeled. No one had a key. No one. Except the previous owners. She bolted upstairs and ripped open a drawer where she kept the property paperwork. Somewhere near the bottom, she found the crumpled envelope the realtor had given her on move-in day. There were two. Only one had been on the ring when she moved in. She pulled out the documents, scanning fast, heart thudding. The old owner's name. Robert Winstead. Her stomach turned. She typed the name into her phone. Searched local articles. Property records. Anything. The first result stopped her cold. Robert Winstead, 47, was found dead in 2017 after a mental health crisis. Cause of death, suicide. Location, this house. Survived by one child. Name withheld. Emily's fingers trembled as she scrolled. The year. Halloween. The article mentioned it. The tragedy occurred after multiple reports of disturbances on Halloween night. She sat there frozen, staring at the screen, pieces falling into place. Whoever this was, he didn't just choose her house at random. He used to live here. He had a key. And he never really left. Downstairs, a sound echoed through the house. A slow, dragging step across the wooden floor. Then another. Emily ran for the closet, yanked Lena inside with her, shut the door, and pressed her hand over the girl's mouth. Footsteps moved through the hall. Closer. Deliberate. Then stopped just outside the door. The knob turned. Emily held her breath. It stopped. A long silence followed. Then the sound of paper sliding under the closet door. She waited, frozen, for a full minute before she moved. She reached for the note. Only 4 words were written on it. I used to live here. Emily didn't sleep. She sat in the dark closet with Lena curled in her lap, barely breathing. Every sound in the house felt louder. Creaks became footsteps. The wind against the siding mimicked whispers. She clutched the note in one hand, the knife in the other. I used to live here. The words clung to her, pressing down like a weight. This wasn't just a stalker or a prank. This was personal, obsessive. At dawn, the house finally went still. Lena stirred. Mom? What's going on? Emily didn't answer. She couldn't. She pressed her lips to Lena's hair and waited until the sun lit the windows faintly, until the fear dulled just enough for movement to feel safe. They left the closet in silence. Nothing seemed touched. No sign of a break-in. No clown. No candy. But the photo was still on the counter. The black bag still open. The door still carried a faint smudge from where the candy bar had been pushed through. Emily grabbed her keys and packed Lena into the car without brushing their teeth or changing out of pajamas. They drove straight to Jake's house. He opened the door, still in his sweatpants, confusion on his face. Emily didn't speak. She just handed him the photo. His jaw tightened. I'm calling my uncle, he said. He's with the sheriff's department. They'll take this seriously. By 10 a.m., 2 unmarked cars were parked outside Emily's house. They swept every room. Checked every door, every window. Nothing was broken. Nothing stolen. But something was found. The back door, where the bag had been, had faint scrape marks around the lock. Signs of tampering. And inside the basement, behind an old cabinet, they found something else. A small, sealed crawlspace. Inside were scattered objects. A child's shoe. A faded comic book. A broken Halloween mask, half clown, half skeleton. And tucked beneath them all, an envelope. Inside were photographs. Photos of a man. Middle-aged. Dark hair. Eyes unfocused. In each photo he wore a clown costume. Not the cracked porcelain mask, but the same style. And in the background of one photo, clearly visible through the window, was the living room of the house. Jake watched the officers carefully. Is that him? He asked. One officer nodded. That's Robert Winstead. This was his house. But he hesitated. He didn't die here. Emily blinked. What? The officer shifted. The official story says suicide. But his body was never recovered. He went missing before he could be placed in psychiatric care. Last seen on Halloween night, 8 years ago. Emily felt her knees give out. She gripped the counter. So he's still out there? The officer nodded. And if this is his doing, he never left this house in his mind. They stayed at Jake's for the next few nights. Emily couldn't bring herself to return home. But on the morning of November 4th, she drove by the house. Just once. To check. To make sure it was over. The lawn was quiet. The windows dark. Nothing out of place. Except for one thing. Sitting on the porch, facing the street. A candy bucket. Orange. Plastic. Smiling. And resting inside it, alone, was a photograph. Of Emily. Sleeping. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the photo. It was taken just hours ago, her eyes closed, hair tangled, completely unaware. She turned the picture over, but there was nothing written on the back. The bucket sat on the porch steps as if waiting. She didn't know if she should feel terrified or sickened, but one thing was clear: Robert Winstead, or whoever was behind this, wanted her to know he was still watching. She snapped a photo with her phone and sent it to Jake. "He's back." Jake responded immediately. "Stay at my place tonight. I'm coming over." Emily didn't wait. She locked her car and raced to Jake's house. That night they made a plan. If Robert was real, and still haunting her, they needed to stop hiding. Jake's uncle from the sheriff's department arrived just after midnight, armed with tools and cameras. They returned to Emily's house. Every inch was checked. Cameras installed. Sensors placed on every door and window. The house felt heavier, darker. But no one came. At least, not until 3:33 a.m. A sudden crash downstairs. Jake grabbed his flashlight, Emily the knife. They crept into the living room. Nothing was broken. Until Jake's light landed on the coffee table. A fresh pile of candy. And beside it, a new note. "You can't hide forever." Suddenly, a cold draft swept through the room. The lights flickered. The clown mask from the basement lay there. Slowly, Jake picked it up. Inside the mask was a small folded paper. Emily unfolded it. Written in the same shaky handwriting was a final message. "This is my house. Now and forever." Then the power went out. The house plunged into darkness, silence swallowing everything except their ragged breaths. Emily's heart pounded like a drum in her chest. Jake fumbled for his phone, its weak glow the only light now. Suddenly, a soft, eerie chuckle echoed through the rooms. "Forever haunted," Jake whispered. They didn't move. The shadows seemed to pulse and stretch, as if alive. Emily's mind raced. Was this a nightmare, or something far worse? The chuckle grew louder, circling them. A whisper followed, barely audible but unmistakable. "You can never leave." Emily grabbed Jake's arm, pulling him toward the stairs. Together, they fled the house, into the cold night air. Behind them, the lights flickered back on. The house stood still, silent. Waiting. Emily never returned. The black bag, the photos, the notes, all vanished the next day. But sometimes, late at night, she still feels it. Watching. Waiting. Because some houses don't forget. And some nightmares never end. Thank you for listening to a creepy true Halloween night horror stories.